Hi, everybody. Dan Young here with Dan's Millionaire Code. And every single week, I bring to you an amazing human being who's changing the world in just phenomenal ways. And as you know, there's no fee, there's no charge for this podcast. It's absolutely free. But I do ask you to pay for it in one way. And that is, well, two ways, actually. One way, execute. When you learn stuff from the guests we bring on, please execute and improve your life for yourself and your loved ones with it. The second thing is, if you found this thing valuable, please share it with a friend and pay it forward. And that way they can enjoy the same benefits of the guests that we have here. So today's guest is a good friend of mine, super good friend of mine, John Sloan. And I'll give you his background here. He is the president and founder of GrowTix. And I'll get a little bit into what they do here. But it's a Utah-based event management software company, though. So when you go to tons of different events and concerts and things like that, you see wristbands, ticketing systems, all that back end to make it really easy. Well, this dude is the super Jedi who made all that kind of stuff. And he's taken it to the next level, because before GrowTix, it was archaic, ancient paper tickets, just garbage. And really, you've brought it into where it needs to be. Just a little background on him. Back in the day, his dev team launched Salt Lake Tribunes' first iPad and iPhone apps back in 2011. So that was a while ago. And that's where he kind of got started there. He created this really killer video gaming event show called GEEX in 2008. I think we spent a lot of time there. We had a booth there. It was really cool. He built an insane website called utahsright.com. Is that still up?
No, not anymore, unfortunately.
It was called Utah's Right, but it was cool because it put all the public salaries of like politicians and public officials up so you could see it. And he built this huge content management platform to the largest Arab media company in Dubai. So massive stuff. So here's John Sloan. John, welcome.
Hey, thank you.
Dude,
Thank you.
so cool having you on here. We met. Where did we meet? Like a LAN party or something, or?
It was around the GEEX timetable.
Yeah.
So we had done the first two GEEX I think I'd done with the company that you acquired, which was Geekbox.
Yeah.
With Adrian and Justin and those guys, and then we connected somewhere around maybe 2010. I think is when we kind of connected.
Time flies, man.
I know, right? So
you were like 12, right?
I probably behaved like it. Yeah.
No.
But yeah, it's been 10 years almost.
Wow.
Yeah, that's insane.
Man. Fast. I'm so proud of you, man, because you're the president now of this thing. GrowTix. So tell us about how did that happen, man?
Sure.
How'd you make that thing?
I know. I think you've shared a meme online in the past of kind of the success, and everyone expects it would be some sort of bar that goes up like this, and it's more like this, right? And that's been the reality of my career. But really, GEEX is actually where it started. We did GEEX for 3 years. We did it 2008, 2010, and 2011. The last two shows, 2010 and 2011, Dan Farr, the guy who started Salt Lake Comic-Con, actually had a booth, he was a sponsor for us. We did a competition called Game in a Day. And so on the Thursday of the event, it was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday event. On the Thursday of the event, they'd pick a theme and they'd say, let's build a video game over 3 days.
Whoa.
And they'd give it to the people who
I remember Dan Farr being there. He had a booth.
With
3D
with
stuff.
Daz 3D, right? That was his previous company.
Yeah.
And so he sponsored our Game in a Day competition. And then he approached us in 2012 and said, hey, you should really bring some celebrities to this gaming show and kind of pull it out of a niche and just make it a Comic-Con, because he traveled a lot with his business. And we weren't necessarily interested in starting a Comic-Con. That really wasn't our wheelhouse. So we said, how about we help you launch Salt Lake? So we helped him launch Salt Lake Comic-Con, and then we saw kind of the gaps that existed in the space between ticketing platform here, an app over here, et cetera. And so ultimately that's what drove us to build the vision of an end-to-end event management platform.
So what was it like before GrowTix? What were most events and concerts and conventions? What were they using before you invented this thing?
Sure, yeah, and just so our wheelhouse is really comic conventions and parade of homes. That's kind of our main focus. We do like beer festivals and some concerts and things, but historically, people would have to use 3 to 4 different platforms to run their event. especially with comic conventions, where their celebrity talent would be maybe managed in an Excel spreadsheet. For example, New York Comic Con, we went out and met with them in 2013, and they're using Google Docs to manage this huge event, right? So they have, one silo here, they have their RFID system here, they have their ticketing platform here, they have their app over here. They're all in different systems, they're all competing companies. There's just not synergy between all of them. And so what we said is, hey, let's build all of this into one platform that really connects and has synergies. And for the user, they have a kind of a single vertical integration. They can log in with one login, and everything's just seamlessly tied together. Wow. So that's been our goal with the platform.
That's cool. So, and we work out at the gym together, right? A little bit at Lifetime. You're mentioning you're always flying around. And so how big has it gotten now? I mean, how many, you have clients everywhere, like crazy now?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot so between Europe, the United States, and Canada is kind of our main demographic at this point, or where our business is. We're probably doing 180 comic conventions per year.
How many are there? I mean, that seems like all of them.
Well, it's a lot, definitely. Yeah, and it's a bit of a bubble for sure. And then Parade of Homes, we do all kind of the major ones around the country as well.
They're everywhere, right?
Comic conventions, of course. Parade of Homes, with the turn in 2008, actually, they kind of had retracted a bit in different markets, but now they're starting to come back. So really our big focus has been to only target verticals that we can actually kind of go deep into. We do sell tickets to concerts, and we do sell tickets to, maybe, you go to an event and you get a ticket and you go in, but really our focus is where we can really drive some depth in like a comic convention where there's so many moving parts and photo ops and autographs and panels and all sorts of things. And then with the Parade of Homes, the consumers download an app and they get turn-by-turn directions to the different homes and all those things. So, and then we do haunted houses as well.
Oh, wow.
So,
are there any other big markets you're trying to just get into now that would benefit from your?
Yeah, really it's identifying what verticals really we could service, because, I don't want to ever position my business where we're arguing over, the reason why we're better than, let's say, Eventbrite is because we're 5 cents cheaper. That is not a good model for me. I don't want to get into a bidding war where we both lose. Yeah. So it's really identifying those markets. And yes, we've identified some additional markets. This year we're getting into a big business out of Toronto. And we're landing about 80 events across the U.S. and Canada, which is a whole other kind of not even related to comic conventions or Parade of Homes. So
that's cool, man. It's so cool seeing something come from almost nothing.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I worked for the newspaper. I led the team with the Tribune, and then there was a point that there was a transition happening, and I went out and found a job with IHC, and I went to our CEO. So I started there when I was 23, young guy, right? No college degree, just trying to hustle. And so I went to the CEO, who really gave me a chance, and said, "Hey, I'd love to stay here and work with you. You've been a great, you've basically given me the autonomy over the years to build these cool things." And he said, "Well, if you can find a way to pay for yourself, I'll bring you on." And so that's what GrowTix stemmed from.
Good investment.
Yeah, for them, absolutely.
For them, huge ROI, right? I mean, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. Wow. So on your road to success, we were talking about how it's a squiggly road. It's not just be successful.
Right.
Tell me about your biggest challenge, man, your biggest, kick in the face since you started this, or usually a couple of them. I mean, I want to hear about the pain, man.
Yeah, well, you learn, especially when you're hustling, one thing. So when I was first starting my career, I spoke to a guy who worked for Microsoft. He was a developer, and he was actually a level designer for Amped, the video game for Xbox back in the day. And I talked to him because, I didn't have a college degree. I grew up just building maps and mods for video games and learning programming languages that way. And so I said, "Hey, is it more important for me to have a portfolio or a resume? Like, what really matters to you as someone who works for Microsoft?" Okay. So I'm like, "Is it more important to have a portfolio or a resume?" Again, as someone who works for Microsoft, who's, kind of one of the leading, at that point, especially Amped, a pretty major title. And he said, "It's all about portfolio to me." He's like, "If you came to me with a piece of paper and said, you can do all of these things," he's like, "that's great. But if you came to me with a portfolio of all the things you've done, even if they've been independent, especially in the creative space, right? If you're a doctor and you're like, 'Hey, I've been cutting people in my garage,' it's like, oh, you need that resume. But as a creative / developer, being able to just say, hey, here's what I've done. Here's these things I've built. And so I took that to heart. Of course, I guess best case scenario would be to have both, right?
Right.
You have a resume and a portfolio. But if you're a hustler and you're in a position that you really want to get an advantage, and it's been the same for me as I've hired people over the years, I can see someone with drive and vision, someone who is passionate about the space that they're in, right? When I first started at the newspaper, there was a girl there that was also a developer, and she didn't have a computer at home. I'm like, you don't have a computer at home? Like, you're clearly not passionate about what we do. She was a web developer, She didn't have pet projects and things she was working on to kind of like, even now, I'm the video game space is an interesting one to me. So I'm building
games.
Yeah, exactly.
You still play video games, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big VR guy these days, but I'm still passionate about the space and the creative space and whatnot. So that said, hustling and trying to always be hungry. I've definitely made some mistakes. I made a pretty major one this year, actually, a pretty visible one. Yeah. Well, I learned a lot, and every time we make a mistake, I mean, it's because we're so driven, and because we've been historically rewarded by being receptive to our customers.
Tell us about your mistake. How painful was it?
Well, Star Wars Celebration this year in Chicago, we did that show. And I had about 6 different things that we had built specifically for that show.
Wow.
We built the app for that show. The episode 9 debut was at that show.
Whoa.
And we ran the lottery for that. So Colbert was a host of that, and everyone got online and would enter a lottery and for a chance. Historically, people, this is like the 20th Star Wars Celebration or thereabouts, and people have had to wait in line to see these big panels.
Yeah.
Well, the big reveal was done via a lottery via us. And I planned for this thing for 6 months, man. I could not sleep and all that. About 2 weeks before the event, Lucasfilm got more actively involved. They've been involved, but they got more actively involved. Wow. And they wanted to blow up everything we'd done and do it a different way, which is fine, but they're preventing scalping.
Deal,
and
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, whatever you guys want to do. But, there's points I just should have said no. I had developed an app for them in December or November and sent them a prototype, and no one had reviewed it or anything. And I just kept pushing on them, like, hey, you guys good with the app? You good with the app? And then in April, right before we're submitting to Apple, the Sunday night, I'm supposed to submit on Monday. The show starts on Friday. I get a message from them saying, hey, we actually want to revert it all to this different style app that you've done in the past. And I just should have said no, and I didn't say no. And so I said yes, and so I stayed up till 4 a.m.
You recoded everything?
Yes.
Holy crap.
And I should have said no, and it's I kind of liken the whole, because it didn't work out great. There was bugs and things because, again, I was writing it but I was trying to be a yes man. I was trying to satisfy Lucasfilm and
quality assurance, right?
Exactly. Not a whole lot of it, right? And so that was
get on the weekend at 4 a.m.
Exactly.
Drinking rock stars.
Exactly. And it's truthfully one of those things where it's been, I guess the lesson that I learned is, there is a certain responsibility that we have at being where we are in the industry. In any given year, we've done more Comic Cons or events than any of our customers have, right? They do one a year. So from that role, or from that perspective, I should be a consultant as well as a software developer, right? Yeah. And so I should have advised, like, hey guys, like, we have something that's been tested for 6 months, and we have something that's brand new. Yes, I know Lucasfilm wants us to change things at the last minute, but we've been working on this for 6 months this way, and it's been tested this way. So what's
your advice to the entrepreneur out there when they come up with whatever business they're in, when there's something that they know is going to turn out bad?
Well, that's a hard question, because historically I've leveraged opportunity. Like, for example, so in 2011, the Salt Lake Tribune, I led the development team there. I was approached by my boss. They said, hey, we want to launch the iPad app, right? For the
new stuff?
What? For all the news and all. Yeah, there was no iPad or iPhone apps for the Tribune in 2011. So I said, cool. They said, go look for a vendor. So I looked for a vendor for a minute, and then I was like, I really always wanted to get in iOS development. I had the original iPhone the day it came out. I had the iPad the day it came out, right? I'm a big advocate. And so I was like, you know what? I'm I'm going to try to build something. So that weekend I built a prototype, and then I came in on Monday and said, hey, here's a prototype of what I built. I'm going to build the app from scratch. So I spent 6 weeks, studied Objective-C, learned it all out, ended up launching the app in 6 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah, turned out great. Was a great opportunity for me, and again, back to that portfolio thing, it really put something solid on my resume. If I would, I would have had a little thing on my resume that would have said like hired a company to build an app versus built an app from scratch, and and here's how many downloads it has, and here's its reviews, right? So it's a double-edged sword because staying hungry is definitely important. I think the couple pieces of advice as we came through this. Number one, there's a great quote from Jerry Seinfeld.
Okay. Jerry.
Yep. Keep your head up when things are bad. Keep your head down when things are good. And I think we've kind of tried to embody that as much as possible. When we have a win, we just got to keep our head down.
That one again. Keep
your head up when things are bad. Keep your head down when things are good. I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but really just keeping your head down and working when things are really good. Don't get too aloof. Don't get too cocky. Know that your next challenge is around the corner. And then when you get beat up and you lose some, just keep your head down or keep your head up and don't let it bring you down. Won't let it stop you in your tracks. Again, this thing happened with us this year. It was rough. We learned from our mistakes, so we took notes, and now we have kind of a new model, and we're able to actually use it kind of as a use case with some of our existing clients that are like, hey, I know it's 2 days before the event, but we want you to change this. And it's like, let us speak from some experience about what has happened to us and advise to you. Do you want this to happen to you? And absolutely,
So it was worth it.
Yes, I mean,
right? I mean,
yes, it's painful.
Got some scars, right?
Exactly. I think that's the thing I told my team is I'm like, don't let it get you down because it's an indication that the fact that we took it this far and we made it as far as we did is an indication that we're still hungry, we're still driven, we're not complacent, and so we should take that as a badge of honor, but we should learn from it. We shouldn't make the same, mistake twice,
So the world is changing. I think we've talked about this before. To the point where things are becoming more and more automated.
Mm-hmm.
Robots are going to be replacing everything from truck drivers to Lyft drivers to all the labor jobs that are, literally within a decade, 25 to 50% of jobs that we see now could be gone.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And doing a little bit of research myself, I'm a big enthusiast into AI and things like that. And you're really nerdy too. Jobs are going to go to people who can create technology, code, innovative products and technology to make people's lives better. And what's really kind of cool about it is I think a lot of the viewers out there are deciding, what do I want to do when I start a business? Or what do I want to do when I finish school? What do I got to do? And some of these jobs, though, whatever someone's pursuing, I recommend you do a little Googling and check your chances of that job getting automated out. Because more than half the jobs are.
Yeah, well, historically, I've been a web developer. How many people just go to Wix now and build something, right? Or use Shopify. Really, there's no person touching anything. And truthfully, it's sufficient for what they need.
Yeah.
For the general business, right? Being a web developer, unless you're working for a major company, just a freelance web developer is drastically different than what it was 10 years ago, where you would just be able to go and hustle and get some jobs. Now you really need a niche or be building a custom product for somebody.
Yeah, and not only that, adding to their portfolio as a web developer, they need to understand marketing, right?
Right.
Because that's the thing. You got the website, okay, how are we getting people there? And that's the magic. So if that marketing touch is in there with the design touch,
right,
then
absolutely,
then it's still viable, right?
Same with us in the event space, right? We have a web platform, but really Google Tag Manager integration, Facebook Pixel integration, retargeting, all those terms are used very regularly by, quite honestly, businesses that are super small. It's just becoming the level of automation and self-service that exists in the advertising space. I historically have come from the advertising space when I started at the Tribune and Deseret News in 2005, I ran all the advertising campaigns on their platforms for the Deseret News website and the Tribune. And at that point, really, you had to call a sales rep. You had to, send over creative. The creative had to be, approved and sent, and then it'd go onto the website for consumption and whatnot. And these days, it's all self-service, and with ad blockers and things. That's a whole other thing. But really, it's all self-service and automated. And again, compared to 10 years ago, right? You talk about that automation. It's something that there was a job specifically for that just doesn't exist anymore.
So let me ask you this. So for people that want to get into tech, people ask me about hardware, specifically, but you're more into app development and solutions on a software level. where do they start? Should they sign up to software training school? Should they go to YouTube? Or what do they do to save time to be relevant and make big bucks and start something awesome?
That's a hard question because, again, when you talk about that path to success, what
would you do, man?
what would you do? What would I do knowing what I know now?
Yeah, like you're telling your high school self, your college self.
I really feel like getting a proper education, and that may or may not be through a college. There's still Dev Mountain and plenty of other opportunities around. I think if you can get a good education in that space to be an app developer or a web developer or whatever your passion is. I really think, when I got into development, it wasn't because I looked up online like, okay, how can I make the most money? It was something I was passionate about because I found a way into the space through video games, right? I was a video gamer. I was a young kid. I was I actually was fortunate. I grew up in Glendale/Rose Park area, right? So the streets of Salt Lake, right? And so growing up over there, we didn't have a lot of money. I would always get old computers from DI, right? Because I had old computers from DI, I didn't have really the means to buy like the latest games, and so I had the shareware version of Doom. And so because I had the shareware version, there wasn't a lot of content, and so I had to build my own content, and that's what led me into being a creator and not a consumer. That's one of the big things I tell people is like, there's a lot of stuff to consume, a lot, right? But being a creator, and that's, unfortunately, it's changed in the game space. There's not as much opportunity for people to download the dev tools and build their own maps and whatnot. Now it's kind of like bolted in, map builders and things. But, I get excited when I see my kids building things and, in Minecraft and all that. But I still think like in getting the mindset of a creator, what are you doing that's creative? What are you building? And it may be nothing. When I was in the position in my career when I wanted to learn Ajax, and I had done a bunch of projects. This was in 2005. I'd done a bunch of projects, but none of them had done Ajax. So I built a website on the side, some video game review website. It was a pet project. There wasn't really a point to it. I didn't expect to make a bunch of money, but I built it just to explore that technology, with Ajax. Mm-hmm. And so I would, suggest the same thing, like build an app to do whatever, even if it's something that's already been done.
So build test apps?
Yeah. Even if it's something that's already been done, you're not building your first app to make $1 million. You're exploring the space. And then the thing that I've always done, with the Salt Lake Tribune app, with Salt Lake Comic-Con, with a lot of things in my career, it's always been leveraging opportunity. There's always been a crossroads in which I come to a point and it's like, I can really work hard, and I'm gonna have to go the extra mile that another person wouldn't go. Mm-hmm. But I can do this thing, and when I do this thing, it's going to put me that much further ahead than anyone else because it's a key moment in my life, and I again look back at those, right? And so identifying those moments and being prepared for those moments where you're like, okay, I've got some app development under my belt, I've got some things. Again, 2003, I was just first married. I was 22 years old. And I got an opportunity to build a website for Penn Talon Corporation. You know them? They own like 18 apartment complexes around the valley. And I was, my first paying web gig, right? So I charged them $1,200 to take photos. Yeah, well, not to me at the time. It was the first paying gig. Yeah. So it was literally $1,200. I had to drive to all, 12 or 20 of their apartment complexes, take photos, build a website, all these things, right? Jeez. Yeah, a lot of hustling. But again, it was like, cool, now I have something when someone comes to me and says, why would I have you do my website? Well, here's a reputable company that I've done work for.
So it goes back to portfolio.
Exactly. See, that's, for me, it's just always, what can I do to leverage something to build a portfolio, right? Yeah. And again, to have the skill set to support that.
Wow. That's good. The portfolio is real life application.
Right. So exactly. And even if it's for yourself, even it's like, hey, I built this test thing, like seeing people actually like hustling and doing things and learning and exploring and being passionate about the technology as opposed to saying like, yeah, I got a degree, I can do that when, if I need to apply my skills, I will, versus, yes, I'm exploring and furthering what I've learned.
Where do you see yourself, man, in 10 years?
10 years. That's
10 years,
a good
man.
question. That's always a challenge, because I don't know where technology will be in 10 years for one. I am passionate about product, and that's, even in my current role, I've had incentive plans and things where it's like, okay, cool, if you make a certain amount of money, you'll get a certain amount of money. And so I could have run things really slim in a selfish way. But I've always been about the product, because I felt like if I'm passionate about what we're doing and we're building a solid product, then generally speaking, people will, will be successful. And that's even clear down to our business model. We have no contracts. We have a usage agreement, and it basically keeps us honest and our clients engaged, because it's like, you can leave at any time. You're not locked into anything. So I'm going to absolutely answer the phone when you call and make sure that you're taken care of.
That's smart.
Yeah. But back to your question, in 10 years, I've always kind of made the joke. Granted, I'm graying a little earlier than I would have hoped. I'm 36 now, but I'm like, no one wants a gray-haired web developer, right? No one wants a gray-haired software developer, because they're going to perceive that they're not like the smartest. And so I see myself transitioning into more of the business side, the product side, the operational side, running things, consultative side. I still love getting my hands dirty, but it's maybe more, having other people do the work, right? With the RFID system.
John Juniors?
Exactly. Yeah. And which I've done. I hired a young guy, Keanu, out of the University of Utah this year, super slick dude. And he's just like me. I've just given him plenty of rope, and he's just running with it. He's, comes to me like, hey, this weekend I built this prototype of something you didn't even ask me to build, and it's like, okay, this is a passion I want to see. You got to harness it a little bit. You got to control it a little bit, and course correct as needed. But yeah, I see myself more in a role of managing those type of people. As much as I love to get my hands dirty, maybe I shouldn't, and I should,
I feel you, because I used to build computers, all the computers, and then I used to have to sign off on every single one, and now the people we have in charge of build, right, the computers is much better than I am, which is great.
Right, and it's hard to relinquish that control because you're passionate about it. Right? That's what got you into this business.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Dan's an amazing example of someone who's built something from the ground up and has been passionate about it for years. And again, you've done it the right way. You've built it organically, and now, where things are with all your companies. Congratulations to you. Yeah.
Well, bringing on smart people, that's the key. Right?
Yeah, and it's hard, right? It's intimidating, right? Everyone says, like, if to hire somebody smarter than you, but if you have the right mindset, you know that you're only as strong as your weakest link. I hate to say that, right? Because it's one of those cliche things, but it's absolute truth.
Yeah. What I find is this, as someone who leads, a company like yourself, what I'll find is that the talent out there typically is what I call mutant talent, meaning that they'll have a very large strength in a certain area, whether it's like web design or app development or building or whatever it is. But they'll have some very, very, very low attributes in other areas, maybe social interaction,
sure,
and those kind of things, though. And really, as a leader, the best thing to do is be well-rounded and be able to spot those people that are better than yourself, right? And be able to help them in those areas and develop them in the areas that are weak and give them some support level there.
Yep.
Because truly, if they were pinnacle in all those areas, then they would simply be your competitor.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Or your boss.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So,
it's amazing how much of the role transitions into a consultative / HR, life coach type role.
Yeah,
I know it's weird, like the amount of personality conflicts that exist, I would have never perceived. But to your point, when certain people are geniuses or gifted in certain areas, other areas, it's like an RPG. You can't put all your points into every single vertical, right?
Intelligence,
exactly,
strength,
exactly. So,
dude, life's a video game. And I'm actually producing a course right now, and based around video game attributes and how that applies to business and how to develop those strengths. So maybe
that's cool.
You'll be the first one. We'll give you a free run through.
Yeah, love to see it
on that. So I'm going to recap just some of the highlights here of the lessons and advice you have for entrepreneurs or people that want to get into dev and things like that. Your portfolio is way greater than your resume. Way, way greater than your resume. Because people can see the actual things that you've done, and then they can visualize that, right, into their business. Jerry Seinfeld said, keep your head up when things are bad, chin up when things are bad, down when things are good. Another piece of advice from you, don't get cocky. Right?
Yep.
Don't get cocky. There's be a creator, build apps, even if it's just for fun, so you can get the experience and add that to your portfolio. And one of your resources for someone wanting to learn Dev is Dev Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
What's Dev Mountain?
So it's like a local program. Kids can go and it's like a course.
Okay. Local here in Utah.
Yeah, local here in Utah. There's also like lynda.com is where I learned iOS development. Also, yeah.
Lynda.com.
I'm trying to think of the other one. There's Treehouse.
Treehouse.
Not the gym, but there's a Team Treehouse, which is another learning platform.
Online,
and they have everything online. Yep.
Okay,
And it's,
Treehouse.
it's like $14 a month. It's pretty nominal. And so again, you could utilize that, and it's all about time and priorities and where you're putting your attention. And so that's really the thing. It's like, do you want to be a creator or a consumer? Because if you want to be a consumer, there's plenty of opportunities, and they're growing every day. You got Netflix. You got you can binge watch everything. You can. Again, if I would have spent 6 weeks consuming video games and just sitting down or whatever versus learning iOS development, creating, and building another skill set that I never had that, is valuable in today's market.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really how you apply yourself. And really, again, all you need is a computer and, at the most $15 a month. There's plenty of free tutorials. You can get books at the library. You can make it happen for yourself if you're driven.
Wow. This is huge information for people because people are asking me, where do they start,
Mm-hmm.
But most of the stuff is available straight on the internet, right? So it's not like you have to sign up for 8 years of school.
Right. Absolutely. Again, I didn't.
Yeah. Where can people find you, man? If they want to like reach out, blow you up, message you, harass you, where was the best place to reach you?
My jsloan at growtix.com is my email. I don't generally participate in Twitter much. I'm on Instagram. Lifetime Fitness, I'm always down there.
Working out?
Yep, I always chat. But yeah, just you can hit me up at jsloan at growtix.com. And love to give advice. I talk to, plenty of people who've seen, because you know how it is. I mean, people they have a perception of success. They have a perception of how you got where you've gotten. So I love to actually sit down with people and kind of explain like, hey, this may not work for you, it may work for you, but the overall principles have applied regardless if it's the newspaper, the ticketing industry, Dubai project, whatever. The overall principles have been the same, and they've generally been,
You're always on the scout like me for great talent to join your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
To work for you and go to that next level.
Right.
Like the new guy you recruited right out of you.
Right.
So they could just email you too if they're interested maybe in working with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put their resume and more importantly, put their portfolio link to you.
Yes, and just one other point on that portfolio: try to diversify it a bit. If you look like you're a one-trick pony and you can only do a certain type of thing, obviously, if you're not the thing that company's looking for, it may not work out. So I'd create a diverse portfolio of what you can do. But yeah, portfolio again to me, I've hired people with degrees. I've hired people with degrees. I've hired people with degrees and portfolios. I've hired people that are, Keanu just came straight out of the U, but he has done 6 or 7 different things at the U, projects he's able to show me. And then that's just continued in the workplace. Again, I see his passion. And again, I saw it because he was doing things outside of the, professor says to do project A, so do that. He was doing things outside of that scope. Mm-hmm. And that's what drove me to say, okay, he's going to do that same thing for me.
Yeah.
He's going to take it outside and really be passionate about, he's more passionate about the business, I think, at this point than I am. He's really like, wow, I was thinking about it last night, and I thought this whole new way we could apply our business to this vertical. It's like, yes, that's the person that I need to work for me. Yeah,
that's excellent. And I know the same feeling. We have a lot of guys on our team like that. They're just inventing stuff.
Yeah,
and it's like, wow.
Right. Yeah, it's exciting, right?
Padawans, right?
Yep.
Bringing the Padawans
yes.
in. So. All right, man, John, thank you for being on.
Thank you.
Massive knowledge there, very practical, and it answers a lot of the questions people are messaging me as well about getting into this field. And what's your email again? Just one more time.
jsloan, JSLOAN, at GrowTix, GROWTIX.com.
Yeah, just give John an email if you have a question about something there. As you know, guys, thank you for being here. But as you know, there is no charge for this podcast. There's no ads. There's nothing. Why do we do this? We do this to share knowledge with you so that you will execute it so you can be a millionaire yourself and be successful and awesome and do great things and help the world. What I do ask you to do is if you find benefit from this, please share it with friends and loved ones and rate it really good on iTunes or on also Google or any of those places you're watching the podcast. So again, thanks for being here this week. And I've got some really phenomenal guests coming up as well. And John, thank you again for taking the time.
Oh,
you are a true master Jedi.
Thank you. I always want to hang out.